let's talk about Alan Turing. His story is just, well, it's one of staggering contradictions. On one hand, you have this celebrated national hero whose mind saved millions of lives. And on the other, he died a convicted criminal. We're going to explore how the man who helped build our modern world was ultimately broken by the very society he fought to protect.
This quote, right here, it just cuts right to the heart of the paradox, doesn't it? He was a genius who gave absolutely everything, and in return, he faced what one source called an impossibly cruel choice. This is the central tragedy we're going to unpack.
You know, from a really young age, Turing was different. He showed these incredible signs of genius, especially with math, often just teaching himself these super complex theories. When he got to King's College, Cambridge, he really started to thrive. He found a place that actually encouraged his unique way of seeing the world, a world he approached with this sharp, unconventional mind that was already asking huge questions about logic and machines. Okay, so before he was a famous codebreaker, Turing was a mathematical logician. And way back in 1936, he published a paper that would, no exaggeration, change everything. It all started with a really abstract problem posed by a famous German mathematician named David Hilbert. Hilbert was basically looking for a universal method, what we'd now call an algorithm, that could decide if any mathematical statement was true or false. It was a massive question. And Turing tackled it by doing something nobody else thought of. He imagined a machine that could perfectly follow any set of logical rules. The real genius of his idea was just how simple it was. He pictured this machine reading a super long tape of ones and zeros. It would just look at one square at a time, check its little rule book, and then follow a basic instruction. Change the symbol, move left or right, and then move on to the next step. That's it. That simple little loop is the very essence of what a computer does. And here is the part that should just blow your mind. This thought experiment from 1936 is effectively the blueprint for every single digital device we use today. Your smartphone, your laptop, the most powerful supercomputers on Earth, they all operate on the fundamental principles that Turing laid out in that paper. So all of this abstract thinking was about to get a very, very real-world test. On September 4th, 1939, just one day after Britain declared war on Germany, Turing was summoned to a top-secret location called Bletchley Park. His mission? To break the unbreakable German codes. The Germans were using a machine called Enigma, and it could be set up in, we'll look at that number. That's 159 quintillion different ways. And the code changed every single day. The task of breaking even one message was considered mathematically impossible. So while a lot of other people were trying to figure this out with graph paper and pencils, Turing had this revolutionary insight. He was convinced that you could automate human logic. If the Germans were using a machine to create the codes, well, the Allies needed a machine to break them. And this was his solution, the Bombi. It was basically the physical version of his 1936 idea. He proved that if a problem has logical steps, a machine can solve it. The Bombi was like having 36 Enigma machines all working together, and it just churned through millions of possible settings at incredible speed to find the right one for that day. The impact of this work was staggering. Because of the intelligence that came out of Bletchley Park, the Allies could anticipate U-boat attacks, and they could successfully trick Hitler about the D-Day landings. Historians figure this work shortened the war by at least 2 years. Just think of the number of lives saved because of that. But, and this is the really heartbreaking part of the story, there were no victory parades for Alan Turing. After the war, the man who was a secret national hero became a public criminal. His unique personality and his homosexuality, things that were mostly overlooked at Bletchley Park, suddenly became a threat in the eyes of the government. Just look at how fast his life was turned upside down. In 1952, he reported a burglary at his house. In the process, his own relationship with another man was revealed to the police, and instead of getting help, he was arrested. So, what was the reward for one of the greatest minds of the 20th century? The man who was pivotal to winning the war now found himself facing a legal system that treated his very identity as a crime. It's just unbelievable. The choice they gave him was just monstrous. Go to prison or undergo a so-called treatment of hormone injections meant to destroy his sex drive. It was chemical castration. He chose the therapy, and the physical and psychological effects were devastating. A year later, he was dead from cyanide poisoning. It was ruled a suicide.
Even though his life was cut so tragically short, Turing's legacy is, well, it's immense. It's all around us, shaping our world in ways he probably only dreamed of, stretching across so many different fields.
I mean, just look at this list. He's not just the father of the modern computer. He's a pioneer of artificial intelligence. He's a World War II hero, a key figure in math and logic. And today, he's rightfully seen as an icon for the LGBTQ+ community. He contributed so much to so many different fields.
Nearly 60 years after his death, the British government finally, officially recognized the profound injustice that he suffered. He received a royal pardon, a very late, but very symbolic, apology for a life so brilliant and so cruelly ended.
Turing's ideas were absolutely revolutionary, and the real tragedy is just wondering what else he could have given the world. His story is this powerful, painful reminder of the human cost of intolerance, and it forces us to ask a really important question. What brilliance do we silence, and what futures do we lose when we let prejudice win?